Put on some pants at least. You're gonna get some skid marks on the bottom of your chin.
Oftentimes I cough and
All right, welcome to another sweet episode of The Stiff Truth. I'm Scott Casanova, and with me, as always, my best buddy here, now over the hill, Mr. Bobby West. How we doing, bud? How's it feel to be 40?
my back hurts. I've got bunions on my feet.
That really escalated quickly, Bob.
I've got hemorrhoids. And now I need some tucks.
Apparently, he's got to go in for a triple bypass surgery next week, too. I mean, things are really escalating with Bob. But all kidding aside, exciting stuff. Huge milestone for everybody that maybe didn't catch it last week when Bob mentioned it. Bob's
First off, shame on you for missing episode 23.
Yeah, well, it was a dandy of an episode. So yeah, I guess, shame on you, but you're the one that kind of is, in a bad position right now. But anyways, yeah, Bob had the over the hill celebration, turned 40 yesterday. That's a huge milestone, Bobby. I mean, first of all, let's talk a little bit about how you feel mentally about being 40. We already talked about your hemorrhoids and all these new kind of great afflictions that you had physically. But how are you feeling, headspace-wise?
I'm in a good place. I feel like I'm probably ahead of the game, career-wise, and my family's in a good space. So I don't really look back and think midlife crisis style about how I didn't do enough by the time I turned 40. I think I've done a fair amount. So I don't feel bad about being 40. I just feel that I'm now 40. So
very insightful, Bob. No, I'm just kidding. But it's interesting that you say that you're not going through any kind of midlife crisis or anything like that. But yesterday, I believe we did talk about your need to get a convertible out of the gate. So I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, the 78 Corvette convertibles coming.
I can't believe, dude, I actually, in my mind, when I was thinking about that, I was thinking a fucking bright yellow 1977 Corvette convertible. So we're 1 year off, baby. We're almost the same age, so almost on the same page.
It's all about a Stingray with 4 on the floor. That's what I'm all about.
That'll shave about 10, 15 years off your life right there. The right direction. You know what I mean? Going back.
Yeah, I'll be acting like a kid again. No, I don't really have any, urges to do anything like that. I mean, really, the only thing I really want to do is, go on a vacation. But COVID.
Yeah, fucking COVID, man. Well, I mean, yeah. Speaking of which, I mean, how was the birthday day in general? I mean, 40 is a big deal, man. I mean, did you have anything special set up? I mean, obviously you probably didn't go anywhere fancy, but what happened?
I said cheers and clinked my cup to imaginary friends, like when you're young and you have a tea party.
Sure. Well, Bob does this every weekend, but anyways, a little bit more.
So me and my friends all partied. It was fun. I had to run around and drink their beers to make it more real in my head as the beers started to go down. When I got back to my seat, I'm like, "Oh, you need another beer? Looks like you're about out over there." So it was super fun.
It's not sad at all.
Really, it was a good day. We just hung out with the family. Cooked some good food.
What'd you have, Bob? Come on, dive into the food. Come on, give me some food porn.
So I did some stovetop pork chops. Butterflied, and then we had some scampi, so some shrimp scampi, and some corn on the cob and veggies, and it's good. Good food.
Sounds real good.
It's good. I mixed up a Mai Tai and went swimming.
Ooh, hey, all right.
Use my bartending skills that I've learned throughout our amazing segment of stiff drinks that we do on this show. So that was pretty nice. It's by the way, swimming with a Mai Tai in hand, being in the pool with a Mai Tai in your hand, is pretty epic.
It's boss, isn't it? You feel
it really is. It's one of the best tasting drinks I've ever had.
Yeah. You feel like there should be some little islander coming over to serve you like some shrimp cocktails or, ask for you, do you need another Mai Tai? But I don't know if that person was there, but I get the feel. I get the feel. I like that.
It makes me feel like I don't deserve it. Like it's too good. Like I need to just like get a domestic brew in hand and like put my bar back down where it needs to be. Like here I am with my Mai Tai in hand, living it up.
You literally have a realization like, I don't deserve this shit. Dump out your Mai Tai. Somebody give
Go
me that.
grab a curse lot.
No, not the one in the fridge. The one in the garage that's sitting there really hot. Just give it to
The
me.
one that hasn't made it to the fridge yet. That's the one I deserve.
Now that's the way to celebrate your 40th right there with a warm Coors Light. Well, good stuff, man. Sounds really exciting, man.
Actually, it was a Stella, and they were briskly ice cold. So
Oh yeah, you were rubbing it on your head beforehand. Oh God, yes.
yeah, and then I grabbed a beer.
Oh. So who the hell was Stella?
Nasty. So enough about me. How was your week? It seemed eventful.
I've had a few things just happened, over the last week and a half or so. I'll try not to spend too much time on this because I do have a, I can ramble. So I'll try to keep it concise for you. But long short here, we already know about my little mishap with the elderly lady that I blew up at and made almost cry because I'm a very empathetic, gentle man with the elderly. But it turns out that I did have a prior accident about 5-6 years ago. Not my fault. Actually, a snowplow hit me in a parking lot when I was parked at a Walgreens when it was, I think it was right around like Thanksgiving or something. So, but I had just moved into my house and I was kind of pinching pennies. This was right after my daughter was born too. So you know how that goes. Not really feeling it with the cash flow at that time. So I went ahead and used the insurance money back then to pay my fucking mortgage. Imagine that. So I never got the fix then. Long short there, I get an appraiser out here for what happened with the older lady. Basically, the tow hitch kind of smashed into my front bumper and fender and everything. It's a total loss. And I didn't really know what the fuck that meant 100%. I was like, I have a feeling I understand that. But essentially, if any of the Stiffies don't know or they haven't gotten these kind of accidents before, when the insurance says that your car is a total loss when they're looking to pay you for the damages, it basically means that the value of your car, the resale value of your car, and the damages, the cost of the damages exceeds over 75% of the value of your car. So why pay that out? Basically, kind of is what they're saying to fix a car. Why keep putting Band-Aids on a shit box like that, right? So that's kind of where we're at there. So it was kind of interesting. I was like, okay, I kind of did a little research on this. I was like, well, maybe I total the car out, use that money, down payment, get myself a new car. I actually had a fun time Friday. Shopping around for, new used cars online. I was getting kind of excited, just because, I haven't had a new car in ages.
So let's open that up a little bit. I want to unpack that. So when I'm looking at new cars and kind of daydreaming, I picture myself driving around and like my new Power Stroke or something, like, yeah, Daddy deserves this truck. Do you do that as well when you're, thumbing through these rides?
Yes and no. It's funny that you said that too, because there was I can't remember the model, but there was I was looking for all-wheel drive vehicles. That's how I had the filter. In Denver, if you have even front-wheel drive, it's pretty dicey, in the wintertime. Rear wheel out the fucking door. It's not practical unless you're rich and that's just your summer car. So I had the filter for all wheel. So basically all that really comes up is some SUVs from a few select makers, like Subaru, of course, Honda, a couple other. There was a few really sweet Cadillac all-wheel drive cars though. So I had those kind of bookmarked. I was like, "Ooh, that's a sick caddy, dude." I was like, that's mean looking. But mainly what I was looking at, dude, was fucking what I have right now or something very similar, which is like a Subaru Impreza
You're
WRX.
taking the pragmatic approach.
Yeah. I could probably dial it down with the make because let's face it, Subarus are very good cars, but they're not exactly cheap. brand new either. So I also look usually for certified used. Drive it off the lot, drops it down, low miles, still get like the warranty, the 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty and all the bells and whistles, and you pay a little bit less. So I was ended up looking at Subarus, Legacies, a couple different like things like that. But anyways, that was all fun on Friday, looking at that. I was like, oh, this would be great. Whatever I get for the car totaled out, boom, down payment. It's pretty cheap, have really low payments. It's great.
Which is kind of the idea of the totaling out payment, right?
Yeah,
It's
100%.
to give you that head start on the other car.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're going to total it out and not have a car anymore, hopefully you can get a little bit of a head start on getting that going again. Anyways, that all hit to that line of then that train of thinking of like, let's get a new car, let's total this bitch out and everything. Let's get excited about having a new car. That's all gone right now because I think I mentioned this on the last episode. My air was not working. I have the window units, the mobile window units, air conditioners. The reason it wasn't working is it kept tripping my breaker. Right, just my electric could not handle the power that it was drawing. So I ended up calling somebody to come check that out. So check out the electrical, all that good stuff. I can't run these air conditioners anymore. So the house has been hot now for about a week and a half. It's been pretty unpleasant. And it looks like I'm looking at potentially having to not having to, but just to make sure this is not a situation 3 months, 6 months down the road. I have a 25-year-old furnace. My electrical is original from 1959 when the house was built. I don't have central air, hence I got to use the units. So I'm looking at now getting a brand new furnace, central air, all new electrical, all new outlets, plugs, switches, all that shit. It's pretty pricey.
So that sounds like literally like gutting your wiring in your house and reinstalling all of it.
It's like ripping out your spinal cord and putting in a new one. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's pretty much the bloodline of what makes a house work. And comfortable too, by the way, because, you wouldn't think so. But when it's 96, 97 degrees outside and it's about 89 inside, I know that's a little bit lower, but it still doesn't feel very good at all. Like, when your balls are sweating for no reason.
Sounds like you need a Mai Tai.
Exactly. So, again, don't want to take too much time on this, but I'm kind of excited about it now because it's going to be a substantial amount of money. But I do have the option to finance it. And it's going to raise the property value dramatically because all this stuff, having no air, having a 25-year-old furnace, having electrical from fucking 60 some years ago, that's not good when you're trying to resell the house. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons why I was able to get such a good deal. So silver lining, going to probably get that done here in the next week. I've got a couple of different quotes I'm looking at. Got to do my due diligence, at least 2 or 3. And who knows? We'll see. But hopefully by this time next week, my balls will be cool and comfortable. So I'm just hoping for that.
Well, you'd already have a leg up if you were using the Shinesty ball hammock.
Nice way to plug it right there, buddy. I can't complain though. Things are going well. It's been an interesting week for me besides that too. Besides all the craziness with finances in the house, Jamie and Elizabeth, my wife and daughter, for any assholes that don't know that already.
So wait, you don't have like 2 wives going on there or something? For those that don't know.
I'm like, wife number 2. But no, this has been the first time, especially with quarantine and everything, right? I mean, my wife decided to be a stay-at-home mom at the end of last year, which was silver lining with COVID. I don't think I've talked about this on the show, but when COVID hit, obviously, and my daughter's in kindergarten, all of a sudden she has to be virtually homeschooled. I work full-time, probably 50 hours, 60 hours a week from the house. There would be no way to dedicate that time. So Jamie's been definitely picking up the slack and she's going the extra mile with doing that and taking care of everything. But long story short there is they went to go visit her dad, grandpa, in Tennessee. And now for about an entire week, it's only been me in the house with, of course, all my fucking animals, but no Elizabeth, no Jamie, nobody around. It's very, very quiet. It's kind of cool in the sense that I've really been able to log in some good hours on Madden. And, that's something I really needed to do.
The downside is there's like not a drop of lotion left or a tissue in the house.
That was the downside. Yeah, definitely there. But no, it has been a little bit sad. I'm an extroverted guy. I love to chit chat. I love to be with my family. I love to hang out with them, and just even doing really basic stuff, watching movies, eating dinner, whatever it is. So it's been quite bachelorish over here in the sense that I've been making a lot of frozen meals, ordering out a lot. I did do a load of laundry yesterday, which I was very proud of myself, but all things that I haven't done in a while. So that's been kind of interesting, but I'm very excited. I'm going to go pick them up at the airport tomorrow night and get the family back rocking here at the home front. So loving that.
Good. Awesome. Well, that was a longer than normal introduction, but we've had a lot going on this week.
Sorry about that, Stiffies. I said, I tend to ramble. I can't help myself.
Well, speaking of longer than normal, I know. Where's he going with this? Ghislaine Maxwell.
My goodness.
Her trial, the time in between now and her trial seems a little bit longer than normal to me. So I know that all Americans have the right to a fair and speedy trial, right? But she's not American. Is that part of the reason why this trial is a year out?
I don't know. Honestly, it's very suspect to me, dude. I mean, you would think with the conspiracies that revolve around the death of Epstein and the laundry list of powerful people that would have a stake in making sure both of these motherfuckers and everything they know and have is completely erased to save their livelihoods and their names and what have you. It seems to me that you'd want to actually, you know what they say, you have a right to a speedy trial. You know what I mean? They kind of went the other direction here, and my mind's kind of thinking, let's just make sure everybody that does have a stake in killing this lady has plenty of time to think it out, plenty of time to see if they can maybe get rid of the documentation or the tapes or whatever that they have to incriminate them, or just really make sure that everybody has that dialed in plan to suicide her. I don't know. It seems to me like they're leaving the door wide open for way too much planning to get rid of her. I mean, that's just me.
So I'm a little more of an optimist.
Well, you're also never quoted saying that people are inherently pieces of shit like me too. So that makes sense.
So I think that maybe the trial's gotten put so far out there because she's working and on turning state's evidence, right? And that they want to have plenty of time to piece together all of this information, all the facts and all the interviews. Like if you went back to I think it was Michael Flynn, right? Similar thing.
Mm-hmm,
yes, he's been acquitted, not even acquitted. He had his case just like torn up.
And kind of how Nancy Pelosi tore up Trump's speech behind her.
Yes, that was his actual case with the Department of Justice. And like, oh, you know what? Let's just not try you for anything that you admitted. We're just gonna get out of here, go home. But before all of that nonsense, he actually was working for a long time with Mueller. Wanted a bunch of interviews with him, and then the Southern District of New York had a bunch of interviews with him, and this guy gave like dozens and dozens of interviews over like an 18-month time frame, and then his trial happened after all of that, right? Well, it was going to happen. So maybe this is something similar. So maybe this is let's just plan it really far out so that we can really get the lay of the land here. There's a lot of stones to turn over and look under to figure out who's going to get charged, where the evidence is going to lead. So maybe that's why they did that. But again, I don't know. It can be interpreted different ways, which is very strange because it is out there that she's cooperating with authorities,
or as Barbara would say, cooperating.
Yes. So
so
it'll be interesting. I really hope they can keep her alive because, like we said, I think it was last week, she's an evil, terrible monster of a human and an incredible piece of shit. But if she can name other people that have funded this ring and are more evil pieces of shit, then I'm all for giving her a little bit of leniency and tracking down these larger fish. I mean, that's the whole idea of turning state's evidence to begin with, right? Is to chase the larger crimes.
I hear you. And there's definitely some validity to what you're saying there. You know, they want to make sure, because this is such a high profile, potentially huge amount of powerful people that they could bring down, right? You want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row. You want to make sure you got everything lined up and it's airtight, right? Kind of like your butthole, airtight.
It's going to have to be, because billionaires will throw a team of lawyers
Oh yeah,
at everything. So
you'll get like a team of 100 Dershowitz. You know what I mean? It's just,
right.
And he's one of the guys that can be incriminated too. But my thing is this, and I totally get that. It makes sense, and it's a great optimistic way to look at it. Here's my thing though: is if you got the dirt, turn it over. It should speak for its fucking self, especially if their videos or recordings of incriminating shit. They should literally, in my mind, be able to fucking go in a courtroom and be like, here's all the tapes. We're just going to play them for everybody. And just be like, yeah, okay.
Well, what if there's 20 cases and she has to give testimony and explain, not only present the evidence and let them build that case with evidence, but then also her testimony as a star witness for each and every one of these cases, and start building on. There's a lot that goes on to it. We just don't know how big it is.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. We'll see. Again, starting this process officially with her a year out from now seems a little bit odd. But anyways, if anybody wants to take a whack at whacking her, you've got a year. So get out there and start planning.
You do. You have time. You have time. Make it count.
Definitely. Oh, my goodness. Well, again, this is something where I honestly, I was hoping, Bob, and I was really thinking that this would be a little bit more of an instant gratification for the American people, like shit, people all over the world, right? Americans are not the only ones that were affected by this sex trafficking ring that Epstein, I don't know if he orchestrated, but was a huge part of. So
yeah, people haven't cared about a case like this since OJ.
Yeah,
for real.
That's true. I love OJ. I mean, orange juice. Do you like pulp or no pulp?
I'm a pulp guy.
I do too. You see, Jamie doesn't like pulp, neither does Elizabeth. I don't get it. I want to really feel like I'm just squeezing the fucking orange into my mouth.
Yeah,
like
just doesn't like pulp. So part of it is I might have been, propagandized when I was in the 80s, when they used to stick the straw in the Tropicana orange in the commercials.
Oh, that was a great commercial.
So maybe that's like kind of set the bar for my expectations early on.
I tried doing that too. It doesn't really work.
It doesn't work.
Can't believe they lied to us in the 80s, and that the milk does a body good commercials, and they were all
it doesn't. It doesn't do a body very good.
It hurts your gut horribly, but God bless a tall glass of vitamin D whole milk though. Oh
no, I drank one yesterday with my birthday cake. So
you looked kind of ashamed when you said that.
I know. I had like my bib on that said happy birthday. So Jess actually put 40 candles in the cake, by the way, and I lit them all, and it was like a fiery inferno. It was just like this crazy hot, crazy flame. And I'm like, all right, they're all lit. Yeah. Happy birthday. Sing it. I gotta get this out. It's a fire hazard.
40 candles. That's aggressive. I like that. That's
really, it was. And some of them were like going together, so the flames were like 5 inches high. We had to get it quick before it was just like a puddle of wax on the cake, and the fire alarms are going off. But it was good. It was good cake.
Gotta love that. Fun times, man. Fun times.
You know what's not good? Your beloved Redskins, and just like their ability to just like keep shitting all over themselves. How does that happen? Like, why?
I don't know what's going on. It's like they've got, dysentery or something like that. But I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, first of all, just so you know, it's not Washington Redskins anymore. It's just Washington Football, I guess, for now, because they've retired the name and the logo, the nickname and the logo, but they haven't come out with the new one yet. So they're kind of like the team in limbo right now. But
why don't they just be the Washington D.C. football players? And we'll just call it that. Their mascot is like a picture of a guy like with the Heisman. They're the football players.
It sounds like a very powerful brand. You know what I mean?
We're the football players. WFP.
If nobody's, I'm sure a lot of people saw this too, but if Washington wasn't already in enough trouble, meaning enough negative press over resisting the name change for so long, right? And now let's face it, I think we may have talked about it on the last show, maybe not, but the only reason why he now is moving to change the name is because FedEx, Nike, and a million other people that are pumping a shitload of money into his organization, his pockets, threatened to leave. So that's the only reason why he's doing it. There's no morality behind it. There's no care about that. But now they put themselves in a situation to be under more scrutiny because there's been 15 women now that have come out against and basically are filing charges for sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. And all of these people were in the head office. Schneider and Bruce Allen were not named, which I'm very, very sad about. I was like, when I saw that article, I was like, oh, shit, that sucks. But I was like, wait a minute. If it's Schneider, he's out. He's out, dude. We'll get a new owner. But no, nobody's been able to get dirt on him yet. But it's all these other guys that were in personnel, football operations, what have you. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there, Bob. I really haven't picked up.
He could still be gone.
He could. But
remember, Joe Paterno wasn't actually raping little boys.
But
his staff was. And so he was gone.
Well, if they can have, they're going to need some substantial hard evidence too. You know this because Schneider's a billionaire kind of guy, but he's been able already he's been able to position himself and separate himself from this and already make a public statement. This is not how this organization works. Blah 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 blah. But to say that Bruce Allen and Schneider had no knowledge of this at all, especially when one of the girls said, I don't know how Bruce wouldn't know. His desk was literally like 3 feet away from mine when a lot of this shit was going on.
Seems a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, So, it seems like bullshit. But he's not with the organization anymore either. But it looks like there can be a massive shakeup right now in the Washington organization. And say what you will, man. I think this is for the good of the organization, for the future of the organization, if you ask me, because it's been broken in Washington. Let's just face it. Since the early 1990s, it's been broken, and
so,
it's all had to do with management.
I want to recap for our Stiffies that may not be familiar with the story. Just give it a little slice.
Go ahead.
So allegedly in 2013, there was close to 30 cheerleaders that went down to Costa Rica for a photo shoot for their annual calendar, which inherently is a very normal thing, right?
Oh, they all do it. Every team does it.
So they required a lot of the cheerleaders to go topless. Some of them went in body paint with no clothes on, which again is fairly reasonable for some of their sexy calendar.
Yeah,
they're going to sell those calendars to men and fans, and they'll usually use that money for a nonprofit, right?
You know who else is a big buyer of those calendars in general?
No,
government interpreters.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I had to. That one was pulled back from what 7-8 episodes ago.
If this were around the horn, I would have just gave you 3 points.
Bloop, bloop, bloop. Anyway, go ahead.
So what happened after that point? And some of the cheerleaders that were there said, inherently they didn't have a problem with, being topless for a photo shoot on set or running around in body paint on set.
God bless them.
They work hard. They've earned that right. But the problem that they had with it is that they had brought some big time advertising contributors and people that do business with the team, and invited them on the shoot. Mm-hmm. So now these women are running around exposing themselves to strangers and people that really don't belong there, and not photographers and set designers and people that should be there. They're just men gawking at them and drinking and enjoying themselves.
Right, and
that was the first flag.
Yeah, and from what I understand too, and this is sorry to cut you off, but from what I understand too, is a lot of these girls were basically used as bargaining pieces for sales deals too, to close deals.
Right.
That's horrific.
So that was bad enough. Fast forward to the end of the shoot, where they say, all of you girls go home, but we want you 9 or so. You aren't done working for the day. So go home. There has been clothes provided for you. Go change into those clothes. You are to escort these, men that we're doing business deals with to this party tonight. And so at that point, it was mandatory, and they were then pimping out their girls.
I was just
Right.
about to say that. Dan Schneider, the pimp, huh? Interesting.
That's right. Just not with football personnel decisions, but apparently with the cheerleaders.
Mm, that's a little
So
backwards.
so now there's 15 of them or so are suing for sexual harassment. So Ron Rivera's doing the huge like forehead slap. Like right as soon as he gets there, he's like, "Oh, I get complete player personnel control. This is what I've always wanted. We have to change our name. You guys are under lawsuits with sexual harassment." It's like the worst start to a new company ever.
I'll tell you what, though, again, with how broken the organization is, and I think Rivera, great pickup, stand-up guy, he, again, was just going to be kind of a Band-Aid to the overall problem. So I still see all this as a huge silver lining because a lot of these guys in their football operations and management in general in the front office, they need to get gone. They need to get gone already.
Yeah.
So if they're going to get gone this way, which, again, is a great reason to fucking get rid of people, now Ron, he's got it, dude. He's got everything. And he can mold the organization the way he sees fit moving forward. So it's kind of like a start over from scratch to his benefit.
Yeah, which the more they put that organization into his hands, the better off they will be.
Yeah,
I really believe that he's one of the better people in the NFL. So
yeah, I can get on board with that.
So that's kind of it. So to wrap it up, Dan Snyder, allegedly a piece of shit.
This is very true, and we're going to see again if this ends up being like a Paterno thing with Penn State and everything. Yeah, he could. And it's not like he has some kind of awesome legacy like Joe Paterno did. I actually felt bad for the guy just because of like how long he had been there, and now he's dealing with this shit on his deathbed. Pretty much, this is not a similar situation in the sense that Dan Schneider's always been a piece of shit in my mind.
Well, that and Joe Paterno, later on, it was found out that he did know. That it was brought to his attention and he didn't do anything about it. So don't you feel bad for him? He made his bed.
He had to worry about winning football games, baby.
He made his deathbed because he died like 6 months later.
Okay, well, yeah, you can't handle that kind of shit at the end of your life. That kind of stress and
my whole life's work is ruined.
Well, speaking of old people, Joe Biden. I don't know if you've been
what
watching.
Is he, 77?
Something like that. But the reason why I'm bringing him up here is we both know, okay, obviously huge, maybe is what they say every 4 years, the most important election of our time. But I don't think Joe Biden is really the most important piece of this ticket. I think it's going to be the VP. Have you seen – and let's just face why. I mean, the reason why I'm saying this is he gets in the office. He beats Trump, which sounds like that could very well happen with what I'm seeing lately. I know the polls were very skewed towards Hillary in 2016, but they seem to be even more so in Joe's favor right now. But the guy gets in office. We've seen him talk off the cuff, non-scripted. I don't see him really thinking on his feet and taking care of the country. He's going to have to surround himself with strong, powerful people that are sound of mind to do that for him. So this may be the most important election for the vice presidential pick of his. Have you seen some of the front runners here?
Yeah, and I think pretty much it's been Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, I forget her name, the governor of Michigan.
Oh, Gretchen, whatever.
Wilson.
Yeah, she looks like a witch. Looks like a really evil person, but that's neither here nor there.
And I think that's about it. I know there's been some talk in New Mexico about Michelle Lujan Grisham, but I don't think that's like a real thing. I think that's just people like to say that because she's from here. But yeah, I think honestly, it's really between those three women. I've also heard what is it? Rice. Not Condoleezza.
I was like, Condoleezza, that doesn't make any sense. But Matt, what a powerful ticket that would be.
Susan Rice.
Susan Rice, yeah.
So was the other one, and I think she was like a secretary under Obama. Oh, that sounds like Clinton talk.
Uh-oh.
No, I forget what she was secretary of. Let me see. So I think that's it, though, as far as like the list. That's pretty much a short list, but it's been pretty close to the vest on this one. I don't know why at this point that decision hasn't been made. You would think that it would have been done already. She was the United States ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice.
Okay.
From 2009 to 2013.
Well, long story short here, I mean, on just what I think about the potential candidates too, the potential picks, is they're all women, which I think is a smart move. Let's just face it, right? I mean, if you're going to balance out a ticket with a old a lifer politician, white dude, right? In this day and age, especially when we almost had the first female president last go around and the excitement around that progressive kind of movement and everything, this is just smart for him. And a woman of color right now with the climate, especially what happened in the past couple of months, even more of a smart play by him. So in my mind, you really only got a few people. You know who they didn't like? I love this too. I was watching something. It's like all the different, female VP potential picks. The very bottom, Elizabeth Warren. Thought it was hilarious. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that bitch, dude.
Well, I just think that she's just too progressive to run right now.
Well, like we had talked about before, she's basically the female version of Bernie Sanders with her campaign. They're nearly running on identical platforms, nearly.
Right.
And let's just face it, the country's not ready for that. Or if they're not ready for it, they don't want that quite yet. So they're not quite ready to take that leap. But yeah, we've got, who was the first one you met her? She's is she down in Florida?
Oh, Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, Stacey Abrams, right down in Florida. So I think Stacey Abrams is a strong pick. She's a very strong, opinionated woman too. And then Rice,
she's very polarizing and charismatic, right? She really draws the people to her. She has like a grassroots following. I think she's a genuine person. I think she's a really good pick too, myself.
Huh. Yeah, I think what has actually been if I'm going to speculate here and just say who I think is going to get the VP pick is probably going to be Kamala Harris. That's what I think.
I do too.
Yeah, I think with her already being in the debates for a little while and she showed some real chops. She again doesn't take shit from anybody. Do I agree with her in her politics? Not so much. But I don't really agree with any right or left politicians because I'm a libertarian. So that really doesn't surprise anybody. But I think, again, why this is so important is soon as Joey gets in office, they might just have him go sit down and like I've always said, finally get to sit in his rocking chair and have some soup and watch fucking, Price is Right or something and let somebody sound of mine and younger go ahead and take the reins and run the country. And that's what we're looking at with the VP. She's
also just, I think she's got her finger on the pulse of our social issues and the feeling of of how America really does think about some of those issues a lot more than a lot of politicians, just in general. I mean, she's younger. She's just, I don't know if it's from California. I mean, it's an interesting thing from California, right? Mm-hmm. If she's a conservative Democrat, a moderate Democrat, in a very, very progressive state, right? So, but Californian politicians have always done well. People like Californian politicians and always have.
Well, to each their own. I'm not really going to speak to that too much because this will just be a much longer show than needed. But yeah, I mean, and in the grand scheme of things in history, let's look at Schwarzenegger, right? Nobody ever thought he was going to be the governor of California. Right? Reagan. Yeah. Reagan came right from there too. So yeah, no, there is definitely, it makes sense too, because if you think of like who's going to be able to run the country, it's like, well, let's look who's running right now, the biggest and most profitable state, right? So it's kind of like that litmus test of if you can run the country. If you did a good job in California, in most people's eyes, you probably got a better shot at running the country than the fucking governor of
because it's like 20% of the GDP.
Yeah,
right. It's like a micro economy compared to the U.S.
You got a way better chance than Taint Reeves, right, or somebody like that. So.
Oh, Taint Reeves.
Old Tainty boy.
We love you, Taint.
So what are you going to do about the economy, Taint? How are you going to fix healthcare? It's like, well, I'm just going to make sure I pray twice every night about it. That'll do it, Taint. Double up on the prayers. Double up.
So if you can't afford healthcare, you can send me your name and number, and I will add you onto my prayer list. Oh, well, I think it's time to make our drink.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready for this, man. Let's go do it. Let's go stiff up.
Let's do it.
All right.
Cheers, Scotty.
Oh, cheers all the way. Cheers to your tits.
Cheers for fears.
Oh, it's a great band.
Cheers for beers.
Cheers.
the fuck's going on here?
I wanted to make sure because there was a tiny itsy bitsy little starting of scrambling, just a little bit when you were talking near our break. So I was like, did a speed test, right? We went to go to get ready. It's like, yeah, it's all wax. I had to reset that bitch real quick, make sure we got.
Good for you. Love
Yeah,
the attention to detail.
I started to notice it just a little bit, just a slice of inconsistency. Oh. Look at
that.
those drinks, huh?
That is an
There we
adios motherfucker.
Yes. Adios, motherfucker.
So bottoms up.
Bottom up, my friend.
It's a fine beverage.
Now, Bob, I'll tell you this right out of the gate here. I feel like I'm going to let the Stiffies down here a little bit because there's really not much on the internet about the history of the adios motherfucker. It very simply, and I do want to share this with everybody. It is definitely a very simple, meaning a very simple switch of a couple things, variation of a Long Island iced tea. So it actually, the kind of drink it is a Long Island drink. So very much like the Tokyo tea, the Long Island iced tea, the adios motherfucker, you just switch a couple things up. You want to tell everybody what's in it?
Yeah, it's half shot of gin, half shot of tequila, half shot of vodka, half shot of rum, and then a couple ounces of sweet and sour, and topped off with Sprite or 7-Up.
You forgot the one I can't pronounce that well.
Yes, that's right. Half shot of blue curacao.
The blue curacao is what makes the drink, though, because I remember when we both made these on the phone. We actually had a little birthday drink on a virtual birthday drink on the phone yesterday, which was fun, wasn't it, Bob? But as we were starting, and God bless you for doing all kinds of research on your birthday. It's like not only with the alcohol like you normally do, but actually the content for the show. I'm really proud of you, Bob. But when we were making these, I'm like, man. Again, when you're putting that shit together, just like when we were making Long Islands, I'm like, I don't see how this is going to taste good. I already know it's going to because I've had a Long Island before, but you're making all these little shots, half ounce of this, half ounce of that. Everything's clear. And then you throw that blue curacao in there and boom, the drink is made all of a sudden. That bright, vibrant blue just fucking screams at you. It's a good one though. And, the only other piece of like his history research about this guy is there was a lot of names. And you've heard some of them too, like just even like Sex on the Beach and stuff like that, and adios motherfucker, rip my tits off, whatever. All these very outlandish kind of crude names started coming out with drinks in the late 20th century. So call it like from about, the 80s to like the early 2000s. They were popping out all these random weird drinks.
It was really the MTV Spring Break influence, I'm sure.
Yeah, something like that, right? So it really just kind of gave these it's great though because the funny name ones, but this is another good one. I don't know about you, but I feel like a regular Tom Cruise from Cocktail back there behind the bar now.
Yeah, it's getting better. Every week I impress myself a little bit more with our beverages, and it's nice having the recall.
Yeah.
Just like yesterday, I made myself a Mai Tai real quick, just boom bam.
I know before
when up and it was incredible.
Right. And it's funny. I've done the same thing with that. A couple others that we've made where I know, and you probably do it too. When I first make it, I have to keep fucking looking at my phone for the recipe. Okay, how much of this? And I just feel frantic a little bit, weird about it. But yeah, get a couple of those mixes up and then it's like riding a goddamn bike.
So I don't want to have to like go so far as to actually put 2 and 2 together for our Stiffies. But what we're saying here is that we are becoming bartenders because the frequency that we serve ourselves is so great that we are learning how to make all these drinks by heart.
It's actually really
our best customers.
And God damn it, we tip ourselves and everything. It's really cool. But no, you're absolutely right. This show, outside of helping us grow intellectually and mentally as people, has really put us through our own barring school, right? We're our own bartender school. We've been actually literally researching drinks, learning how to make them, getting bar sets, getting all this legit stuff to make it with. It's been really fun, man, to have a new little trade. And what better trade to have than being able to, mix up your own drinks like MacGyver anywhere you are,
Well, I'm going to tell you what. Later on today, I'm going to make this drink blended. Put my little umbrella in it and everything. It's going to be pretty epic.
We talked about that, man. I want to see it too. It's going to be like a fucking blended margarita, but with some balls behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So,
Mm-hmm.
Adios MF blended. We'll see if that's a thing. I bet it's
Adios. I like to say adios, motherfucker. And I'd like to say that. Can you imagine saying that in a bar too? Like the bartender would be like, easy, dude. No reason to be so fucking aggro about it. You're all, what do you need? Give me an adios, motherfucker.
It's like an angry Steve Carell. Just
really sounded like that, didn't it?
A little bit.
Well, let's get right into it. I think our favorite segment, well, it's really the only, I guess, unique segment of the show that we've done so far, but definitely a fun one here. Would you like to do your fun little audio and graphic?
Yeah, hold on. Not before I just kind of show you. Look, do you see those nice spherical balls of ice in there?
They look a little too symmetrical to be actual testicles. What are those, Bob?
Just some new cocktail ice cubes. Not even cubes, ice balls. I've been fiddling around with.
I got to thank you too, because you got me a set of those, and the ones that are actually the big cubes that are literally like the size of a fucking whiskey glass.
Yeah.
One and done, and then the other section is the ice balls. And my gosh, I love that, especially if you want to really keep the integrity of your scotch or whiskey drink while you're having it. You can't have it watered down too much. Now, don't get me wrong, on a hot summer's day, a whiskey and water or a scotch and water is kind of like a go-to drink for me, just when I want to kind of not be a little sippy, just kind of more of like a chugging drink, but it's not for the connoisseurs. You know what I mean?
Did you have you gotten a chance to use the like the rocks, the whiskey rocks yet?
I have, yes. I do. I love those because, I mean, if you really want to try, especially if you're trying new scotch, new whiskeys or something like that, you're comparing them. If you really want to get down to the nitty gritty and really be able to distinguish the differences, the very subtle differences between all the whiskeys and scotches out there, that's the only way to fly. Because as immediately as even the ice balls and the ice chunks and everything, the big cubes are great because they melt very slowly. But let's face it, unless your booze is ice cold, and God bless you if you have a freezer fucking, well, that'd be kind of cool, huh? Like a freezer, like bar, like all the booze is in there, or like,
just like a huge glass drink machine like you get at the convenience stores, but just full of frozen and ice cold booze.
Yeah,
like 33-degree booze.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it too. You could have a bar cart that was literally like a big freezer that you'd open up too, and on top of the freezer would be all your mixers or all your other utensils and shot glasses. Anyways, I don't want to give that away and have somebody take my idea. Let's move on. So he's all boom, 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 patented.
Here we are with our conspiracy theory segment.
It's tinfoil hat time.
We've covered some good ones. There's just a limitless amount of conspiracy theories. These are always super fun to research. And honestly, I got to say, this one was a little intimidating. It's a little much. It's a pretty robust theory. There's a lot of leads to track down and stories to read and research to be had. But today we're going to talk about the Clintons' body count.
Bum, 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 bum. And honestly, Bob, this one probably has the most facts and truth to it. Like, this one is very hard to just discredit, even like DIA, even like, of course, Paul McCartney and stuff like that, 5G. There's so many question marks there. There's not enough meat to it, right? But this one, man, goodness gracious, bro. I mean, doing the research yesterday, it's hard to ignore the very unusual ways that so many people that had incriminating evidence against the Clintons, either Bill or Hillary, died in very strange ways, and they were ruled suicides many a times, and a lot of them were almost like a 99.9%, almost like Epstein's hanging, right? Like, that's not really possible, but there were even more glaring. You know what I mean? Let's say this: if the Clintons killed Epstein, they've gotten better and better and better at it over the years. You know what I mean? Because Jesus Christ, I mean, legitimately, do you want to say at least about 40, 45 people could be probably on the list?
Yeah, from what I've said, I mean, from what I've read and what I've seen, it's plausible that they definitely have had a hand in killing a few dozen people. So this one can neither be, like any good conspiracy theory, can either be proven or not. But I can say this: knowing the Clintons personally, to where they like know your
Like
name,
like you
has a
do.
mortality rate like COVID.
Yeah, it
Right?
really it
Like
really
just
does.
knowing them, like you have like a, 0.5% chance of suiciding yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I would actually decline an introduction now to the Clintons because it would drive up my likelihood and percentage to die dramatically.
Do you want to meet Bill Clinton?
No, that's okay.
I don't know.
I don't
about that.
I don't know if I want to have a heart attack while I'm eating a ham sandwich next week. So no, I don't. I think I'm going to pass on that one. But it's just really strange stuff. I mean, starting out, man, what I really liked about the documentary that we kind of really used as our main source here, I like how they started out like at the very beginning of both of them. Talking about Bill just kind of being a moochy kind of sleazeball, just grubby
Yeah, it's
guy,
like a party animal,
party
college
animal,
kid, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And his brother Roger, wow, another piece of work. I didn't really know too much about him, but he was quoted saying, "Or like, yeah, you better make sure you get a lot of that stuff." Talking about cocaine, my brother has like the whole, a nose like a fucking I can't
Like a
remember what-
vacuum.
yeah, like a vacuum.
Yeah.
And then there was another person quoted too, like Bill was so high on cocaine once that he fell into a dumpster. Like, wow, that's really fucking high. But no, all kidding aside, they take it back to where there's just again unethical, sideways, dishonest behavior starts when he was in college. Same thing with Hillary, right? I mean, just real quick example was he had no money, and yet all of a sudden he's traveling the world and living it up in the most prestigious and well-to-do hotels and stuff in countries like Prague and Russia. Otherwise, there's a lot of controversy and conspiracy type theories just around what he was doing there and how he got his money to begin with, right? So that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Bill Clinton didn't come from money.
No, he made himself a damn lot of it though. My goodness,
Right.
Jesus Christ!
Right. Even to this day, they're worth like $500 million.
Yeah, they're one of the, I can't remember the number, but they're one of the wealthiest families in the country. And during the 1980s, they made so much money, which is very ironic because Hillary Clinton is quoted saying multiple times after the 80s that the 80s were nothing but the decade of greed. I was like, huh, really? That's interesting, Hillary. But let's unpack some of these other ones, man. I know
so sorry, my bad. It looks like they have a net worth of about 80 million.
Oh, sure. That's not too bad for lifetime politicians, right? You're civil servants, right? So that's all good. Yeah, it's shady. But like I was saying, let's unpack some of this stuff. I mean, I know that we've got a laundry list of people we can name, and I don't want to be like that other documentary that was like basically reading the book of Numbers from the Bible.
This man once met Bill Clinton and then had a heart attack. So
yeah. And then he's like, yeah, right. Like we buy that. It's like, I honestly, I don't think you even made it to the end of that one. You know what it was? It was a political ad. It was a conservative. It was at the very, very end. He's like, so these people are fucking horrible. And now she has the potential to be the U.S. president. If you vote for Hillary Clinton, you're a despicable person. And I was like, wow, well, really laying it on kind of thick.
They didn't go full Joe Biden and say that, like, you'll lose your ethnicity.
Well, no, they can't really do that. They don't have this.
If you don't vote for Hillary, then you're less white.
If you don't vote for Hillary, if you're a man and you don't vote for Hillary, you've got no balls. If you're a woman and you don't vote for Hillary, well, you're just reinforcing like the 1950s atomic family, like where the wife is a subordinate. I don't know, right? Well, we can't. It's not as fun as the Joe Biden one.
It's not near as fun. I know. So yeah, I think like really the one that stands apart for me is there's a trail of people that just kind of follows. I would say Hillary, but I mean it's not. It really follows Bill Clinton around. I mean, he's the one that was the prominent politician. I mean, Hillary was a senator and a secretary of state, but she was never a governor or a president. You know what I mean? So I would say that these are really, Bill. Now, is she the brains behind it? Maybe. But as far as the political power, it's always followed Bill around. The ones that really like strike out to me is that there have been, what is this? 11 bodyguards that have served Bill Clinton that are no longer alive.
Yeah.
Mind you,
And,
he was
this,
the old one when they
yeah.
served him. They weren't old men.
And what's really interesting about that, Bob, is these aren't just bodyguards that were detailed to work for him during his 2 presidency terms. This was also bodyguards during his time as governor of Arkansas,
Right.
too. And I'll be honest with you, and we'll get into this. This guy really did some really fucking shitty things. If anybody could be, if they could incriminate Bill Clinton on some of the stuff he did when he was in the White House, I see high treason and him getting like the death penalty. To be honest with you, if all these things are true, we talked about too, his ties with China, all that kind of shit. But going back to Arkansas, you're right. Especially then, a lot of this was Bill. Hillary was in the picture, and let me tell you this: what a team, right? They always did everything together. They did the Whitewater investment together. They did everything together. So that's why Hillary's always involved. And there's been some people that have been quoted. She said some really nasty shit. She hates police. She calls them pigs. She called her private detail bodyguards police. Even their daughter Chelsea referred to them as like filthy fucking pigs and shit. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Now, I'm not going to say that's necessarily an uncommon or bad thing, but kind of strange for somebody that's in the government, right? To really
Or at
call
least
out.
strange for someone that has, retired military and retired police, bodyguards and people to protect them everywhere they go.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, so it is interesting. The bodyguard thing is crazy because, like, as you just said too, these aren't just some fucking Joe schmoes like, hey, I need a job. I'm pretty good with a gun and I've got some muscles. These are like high-ranking ex-military officials that were, a lot of them that were assigned to work as bodyguards for Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton too. So yeah, and they disappear very conveniently. I mean, if they couldn't get them all in one helicopter or a plane wreck, they've got another one lined up for next week. You know what I mean? It was pretty fucking impressive. But the other thing that struck me really hardcore, man, is we could talk about Whitewater. I mean, that's something where that's just like one of the most horrible scams if you really dig into it. And Stiffies, if you guys aren't too familiar, I know it's been a long time since this has happened, but Whitewater was basically a real estate investment that the Clintons got into. Nice area in Arkansas that goes along the Whitewater River. And a lot of this was marketed to, I wouldn't say like an elderly community, but you know what I mean? There was more marketed to just elderly people, nice, safe neighborhoods, that kind of stuff. Anyways, long short there, the way these agreements and these mortgages contracts were set up is already the vast majority of these people are very, very old. And it was set up to where if you defaulted or did not make a payment, it doesn't matter if it was a day late or fucking 2 years late, right? You would automatically get stripped of your property and equity 100%. And this had no time frame on it too, right? So somebody could go in. I think the example was if somebody like got in there, he had made payments for like 5 or 10 years. And then of course, since most of these people are older people, he had a very bad health scare, was unable to make his next payment, lost his house, lost his property, and all the equity went back to the Clintons. This happened time and time and time again. And because a lot of these people were elderly too, they were relying on other people to kind of hopefully read the fine print and these agreements and these contracts that they were signing. And everybody kind of missed that. Hey, by the way, if you default or if you're late on anything here, you're toast. Everything, your entire investment is gone. So they literally did this fucking over and over again. I think they said on that documentary too, like some of these houses, they would sell and resell like fucking like 10, 15 times because it would happen so much. And this is probably part number one on how they started building their millions. So.
When it's funny too, because they could have gone the other way with it and hooked these people up and been revered by their family. You know what I mean?
But you know what though? Their timeline didn't match up with that slow gratification. You know what I mean? That's something that have to be building over years and years and years. You'd probably be pretty well to do and have a nice little chunk of change, but they had ambitions, man. And that 10, 15-year plan wasn't in the cards for them. They needed the money and they wanted it quick. So I hear
go back to like a 90-year-old movie. They could have gone the Mr. Potter way or the George Bailey way. And they went the Mr. Potter way.
They sure did.
For sure. As a lot of ruthless business people do. One of the interesting things that popped up to me during a lot of these deaths as they start piling up and you start looking at Kenneth Starr investigated a lot of these deaths. Like Kenneth Starr keeps popping up, kind of looking into them, and why is Kenneth Starr's name popping up? Interesting thing, Kenneth Starr is like far away from any of that now, and I hadn't heard of Kenneth Starr until the impeachment, right? Because he was a lead investigator for the Clinton impeachment, right? So it's just kind of interesting how Kenneth Starr keeps like corroborating some of these things. Another part of the conspiracy theory, but specifically like Vince Foster, right? It was investigated again by Kenneth Starr, who also said it was a suicide, right? Because Kenneth Starr was what was he in the DOJ?
I don't remember. Honestly, my mind goes so sideways sometimes, dude. I just remember that when he first came on the scene, he was a hippie from California with a ponytail, and that made me laugh for some reason. So apologize that I forget his title directly, but while you're looking that up, though, the Vincent Foster thing is probably the most glaring. I mean, there's some other things that are pretty fucking glaring, dude, but that's like a kill and then a horrible, like a horrible,
it was a sloppy kill too.
Yeah, a sloppy kill and a horrible attempt to cover it up and basically create a fake crime scene where this guy supposedly took his life. That so many things were wrong with it. And it all had a lot to do. And I think one of the most, most kind of gripping things for me throughout watching all this and learning all of this is we had talked about this prior to the show. There's so many people, Vincent Foster, Jerry Parks, I could go on and on, all the kids and all the young adults that witnessed the cocaine drop-off. All of that was tied to that. Is it Mina? The Mina cartel area or whatever. I think that's what it's called. It's MENA, but I don't know if it's Mena or Mina because again, but this is like a small mountainous kind of town in northwestern Arkansas that apparently the Clintons and other people had a huge drug trafficking ring with cocaine coming from either California or coming from up through like South America, Mexico, through Florida. And so many people died because they witnessed a drug drop-off or they had knowledge or they even participated in the drug trafficking, like your boy, was it Foster, right? He was kind of one of the ones that was working with him on that. So there's a lot of people.
Vince Foster and Clinton go way back.
Oh yeah, they're from the same like boyhood town, right, or something like that. Yeah,
like they knew each other most of their adult life. So if anyone had dirt, it would have been that guy. So Kenneth Starr was he was a United States Circuit Judge and the 39th Solicitor General of the U.S.
I don't know what that means, but it's very informative.
Yeah, I don't either. So now I'm going to have to look into what the Solicitor General is because he's looking into a lot of investigations.
You know what you should do? You should get a book on it. Since you're
another interesting thing about Ken Starr here is he was a Democrat until 1975, and right around the Roe v. Wade time, he switched parties and has been a Republican ever since. Just got to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you this too, going back to kind of his Arkansas days, the Mina drug trafficking, Vince Foster, Jerry Parks, both involved in that. A lot of those kids that were killed, they call it the train murders, right? Because, and here's how one of them took place. Literally, these kids said, we just saw like a fucking drug drop off, literally like a cocaine fucking deal happened. And those two kids were beaten, tortured, and then killed, put in bags and thrown on the railroad track, waiting for the next train to really just destroy their fucking bodies and mutilate them. Now, when they did the autopsy, of course, this was an independent medical examiner because the medical examiner of the time in Arkansas was Mr. Fahmy Malik or whatever. He ruled everything a suicide. Gunshot wound to the back of the head, suicide. Gunshot wound from two different weapons in the chest, suicide. This guy was just crazy. He was on a roll. But these kids, even that was labeled an accidental death, and the blame was they were smoking marijuana cigarettes and they fell onto the train track because that's what happens when you get sloppy on marijuana.
Every time I got stoned, I ended up migrating towards a train.
Yeah, or like Bill Clinton, when I get stoned, sometimes I just fall ass backwards into a fucking dumpster. You know what I mean? Whatever. It just happens.
Man, that was a good joint right there. I don't even know what happened.
Putting my head in the fucking dumpster, man. That was hardcore. But no, my point was, when they had every time they went back and had an independent medical examiner do an autopsy on these people that had these very strange ways of dying, obviously very malicious, very unusual, always seemed like some kind of homicide or ill play involved, suicide, accidental death. Well, the kids, after they were exhumed, they had to be exhumed by the mother. I don't know if you even saw that because she didn't buy into it. And sure enough, they find multiple stab wounds on one of the kid and a gunshot wound in the back of the head of the other. But yet, that was them smoking marijuana cigarettes. Because again, you've watched Reefer Madness from the 30s. When I smoke a joint, the first thing I want to do is get super violent and stab somebody 50 times.
Well, the first thing that you should do is duck.
This is true. This is very true.
So yeah, conspiracy theory, true or not, the Clintons are fucking scary. Wherever they go, death surrounds them. That's for sure. That can't be denied. Is that there's 6 degrees of separation between you and I and Kevin Bacon. We've confirmed this.
True.
But with Clinton, there's like 2 degrees of separations of death in the Clintons. Like it's uncanny. And there's, in a court of law, when you're trying to present a case, it's circumstantial evidence won't get you there without physical evidence. Unless you have a fucking mountain of circumstantial evidence to where a jury will not buy any other reasonable event that could have happened, right? But with the Clintons, there's a mountain of circumstantial evidence that there's foul play dealing with their associates as they've moved along over the years.
Yeah, and we could sit here and go through them very, very just methodically and boring. But the point is, like you were just saying, there's too many coincidences, right? There's just too many to ignore with that mountain of evidence. Sure, it's a little bit circumstantial in that sense, but it seems like the overwhelming majority of people that had any dealings with the Clintons that might end up being bad for them moving forward dies.
Well, and it's always like people that could have had incriminating evidence.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not always, but there's a lot of those type of people in there when you start looking at all these body counts. And then just like how convenient it is that they died, and that benefited the Clintons. And that's how this list is comprised, and that's what started the conspiracy theory. But how many times can that really happen in someone's life? How many times can you pick a number in roulette and hit? I mean,
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great way to put it, man, because we don't even need to go through it all. I mean, Stiffies, do some research out there. In fact, there's a fantastic,
it's super fun research too, by the way.
Yeah. And what's that one called that we watched? I think it's called,
we'll put it in the link of the YouTube. So if you guys want that, it'll be there in the comments or the description of the YouTube. But if you really have to know and you can't wait or whatever, hit us up on Facebook. We'll always answer your questions.
Yeah, and just to give you a little teaser, a little dangler there, I think one of the most enlightening things that's a little bit outside of the body count that I never knew is how much Bill Clinton was involved with really the Chinese Communist Party and also organized crime from Asia, and bringing them into America and basically feeding them classified and very, very a lot of intelligence, military to otherwise, which was, to me, is mind blowing. He could be the reason why the Chinese have so much power and a leg up on us in a lot of senses, but that's for another show.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you ask Trump, it's probably Obama, but if you actually read the facts, I think it goes back, and I think you're absolutely right. Bill Clinton's ties to China are remarkably similar to kind of how Trump favors Russia, right? And always backs him and has Russian people over, accidentally let like Israeli fucking national security information slip about their like spying and positioning and all that. It is similar, like, so as to how you can look at all the things in the last few years, that's all drawn the question mark with kind of Trump and Russia. Why is there that like relationship? That's exactly what I look at. And when I look at Bill Clinton and I find out all these Chinese ties, it's something to directly relate it to, but it didn't hit the news back then because the news wasn't as available back then. Things weren't near as transparent in the 90s as they are now.
And honestly, too, it wasn't as divisive, and it wasn't as opinionative and designed to back up one political person or one corporation like it is today too. And I think that's another big thing, is we got a lot more light on what Trump is doing, because there's a lot of news sources that are out to get him, because that's their agenda and that's who's backing their paychecks, right? People that want him out of office or to want to smear his name. So there's that too. There wasn't nearly as much of that back in the 90s and before.
Could you imagine if there was more partisan news back in the 90s, the shit that would have come out about Bill?
Oh man, Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, one, I don't know if he ever would have gotten office. I mean, just based off of all the sexual allegations that he had would probably be enough. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting if there was a lot more independent, no skin in the game one way or the other, just want to get the real dope and give it to the American people so we're informed. I think it's a lost thing. What about you, Bobby?
Yeah, and well, I normally don't like to kind of pick a side on our conspiracy theories, but I'm not going to say that there's a list of 45 people that the Clintons have killed, but I am going to say that there's probably a good half a dozen to a dozen on there that's hard to refute.
Yeah.
Right. The other
Very
ones
hard to
are,
refute.
it could go either way or whatever. But there's someone there, like the whole, it can't be a coincidence that 11 of their personal bodyguards are now dead.
No.
And that's a hard one to swallow. That's a lot of people. And I know they're plane accidents, but man, rich people are powerful.
And there was about 3, 4, I want to say, including Foster, including Jerry, what was it? Jerry, I can't remember his name, but he was an associate of Foster's too. Like everybody that had dirt and that were going to incriminate him during his time in Arkansas too, all of them dying like right after they were announcing that they were either going to turn over on the guy, or release information or not release information to the Clintons or whatever it was. It was always just very convenient.
Right. And then it's like Paula Jones' friend right before she's supposed to testify.
Oh, Kathy Ferguson. Absolutely.
Yeah,
she's the one who
just dead,
packs up she packs up her bags to go on a trip, but before she leaves, she blows her head off, because everybody does that. They get ready for their trip and then they blow their head off.
She was late for a plane and she didn't buy the insurance. You got to buy the insurance. You got to.
Now, that was a hard lesson learned, Kathy. A hard lesson learned.
It's $5,000. It's all the money I have. I'm not going to do it. So I think that we've covered about all we need to. This isn't a show about conspiracy theories, but I hope you guys enjoyed that segment of the Clinton body count. Super fun.
Don't piss
for us to read about it, not for people that know the Clintons. That's probably not super fun.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun to die in a weird, mysterious way either. So
So
I just got
it's
somber.
time for us to meander on into our stiff truth.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, we kind of just talked about it a little there at the tail end.
A little. I almost thought you were segueing there.
I was about to, but then I thought, yeah, it's okay. We're all right. But yeah, no, what we want to talk about today really, and I think it was really enlightening to both Bob and I too, because we had a different idea of what we were going to be talking about this when we spoke about it last week. We had an entirely different understanding, and Stiffies, just not to leave anybody hanging, but we're really talking about the state of modern American journalism, how it's kind of dying right now. I wouldn't say kind of, let me pull that out there, how it's definitely dying right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And we were enlightened by a great interview that I think we should go ahead and put on the, the YouTube comments as well, because what we initially thought is, okay, what the fuck is going on with the news? It's so just opinion driven. There's no real facts. There's no real investigative journalism anymore. Somebody's always got some bias and an agenda that kind of supports the narrative of their, again, their political liking or whatever it is. But yet the news is so fucking popular right now because people want the news. They want to feel like they're being informed, right? That's how we can make choices to be a working democracy. So we were kind of looking at this originally as just like, what the fuck has happened? And what happened to real journalism, not really knowing the root cause or what's really happened behind the scenes.
Can I interrupt you?
No.
I'm going to anyway.
Go ahead.
So originally this kind of came to our attention because Scott noticed, and I had read the story too, but Scott noticed that Tucker Carlson,
Tucky baby,
on a host on Fox News at what 8 o'clock time slot, 7 o'clock,
Yeah, 8 o'clock,
8 o'clock,
I believe. Yeah.
So he replaced Bill O'Reilly, that time slot. So we all know that time slot. Fucking douchebag. Anyway,
Tell us how you really feel, Bob. Tell us how you really feel.
So we were talking about Tucky, who friend of the show, Tucker Carlson.
I went fishing with him last week.
He has claimed not only the highest rated show on cable, much less news shows, but he's achieved a rating that's never been seen before by a regularly scheduled program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ratings like that are for like sporting events, right? Game 6 of the World Series gets 4 million viewers or whatever. Not like this. So for a whole quarter, he averaged over 4 million viewers every month. And that was Q2 of this year. And so then Scott called me and was like, hey, Tucker Carlson has the highest rated show. And I was like, I saw that. So then I said, Scott, what's interesting is I looked up the numbers, and Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow, who are normally the one fighting for that
God,
ratings war.
Hannity is such a piece. I'm sorry. I just had to interject. I think we've said it before, but I can't handle him, dude. Anyways.
Don't even want to drink a beer with that guy.
I don't, because he'd probably like call me out like some kind of.
And he'd grab like a Molson or something super fruity.
We just lost all our Canadian viewers.
Anyway, so I said, what's interesting about that is that the other ratings haven't gone down. So what we're talking about here is overall, there's more people watching cable news now than ever in the history of television, which is fascinating in itself. So that led us kind of down to the point of, well, let's talk about this, and then how partisan the media is, and how you always have to fact check something when you hear it. So we're going to talk about all of that until we started researching it. You want to tell them what kind of we found out once we started researching this?
Yeah, it's really been interesting, man, because I never would have thought this, but believe it or not, like the online publications and online news sources have been a contributing factor to the death of modern journalism. But what's really essentially been happening is, and this has been over years now, is there's been so much slimming down and elimination of local independent news sources and journalists, right? I think they focused a little bit on what we watched with just newspapers in general, right? You had so many independent, small news outlets, or even bigger news outlets, that had a lot of people that would focus on certain towns and really dig into the news there, because that's where they lived and those are the people that they cared about the most, right? Sure. And what's been happening over the course of like 20, 30 years now, I'll just go ahead and say, give it that kind of time frame, maybe even more, to be honest with you, is there's no money in that. They're not getting a lot of money from journalism in general. And I think that was a really glaring thing to me. I always watch the news and I think, man, that guy's got to be fucking loaded. And maybe the big box, like the Tucker Carlsons, the Hannitys, they're probably doing pretty well. But a lot of these other newspapers, because of online presence, because of the big box ones, they had to start really getting rid of a lot of journalists and a lot of local newspapers, which unfortunately kind of got rid of everybody that was doing this objectively and non-for-profit and for their local communities, right? So you remove all those people, and I love the way they put it in the interview that we watched, is where we're at right now, and like what we initially and on the surface level we're going to talk about. It's very propaganda state kind of news that we have, And if you eliminate, let's just face it, if you eliminate Fox, we are getting one narrative. And it's backed up by the people that are paying for those news outlets. Everybody wants to have private news, but unfortunately, every owner and every CEO of all the other major news outlets are pushing for the left. So if you don't have all these independents, and I'm just using it as an example, we're only going to get one story, one narrative. Where has that happened before? Nazi Germany, other places, cults,
It's happening right now in China.
Yeah, it's happening right now in China.
And North Korea also has state-run news.
Yeah, when you got propaganda news in a propaganda state, you are not able to be truly informed. So that's kind of in essence what has happened here is there's no money in journalism. The little guys are being eliminated more and more so. And without anybody that really does their own investigative reporting and get their own stories, even what we have now, a lot from the big box and the commercial, it's very sensual, very, very it's very profit driven. It's very entertainment value driven. And it's not really ever any original stories. And what's kind of changed now, and what I kind of got from this, and I'm sure you can, carry on and have a different perspective here to a certain extent, but it seems like there is no more true investigative journalism that's original. It's either they're getting stories, the sources are from either government agencies, the White House administration, the House, whatever, or from corporations. And these are the sources. And then the other news outlets, like the big box news outlets and everything, they're simply just regurgitating these sources and putting their opinionated spin on it. So that's the other thing that was really enlightening to me, is watching that. And the one gentleman said, I can't remember his name, but
that was John Nichols.
Yeah, John
journalist.
Nichols.
He co-wrote the book.
Yeah,
The Death and Life of American Journalism.
Fantastic. Pick it up. It's $4. We'll put that on there too. So, but in all seriousness, though, is what I thought was, and I think about it now when I think about what I've seen in the news cycles for years now, is he was talking about that and saying, hey, don't get me wrong, I'm always very honored when people bring me on CNN, Fox, or whatever, but they're never really asking me about a story that I broke or brought to light or questions that need to be asked. They're literally asking me my opinion on what a politician did or what this corporation did.
Right.
That's very dangerous.
Well, it's not news. So to kind of like wind it all down. So first off, we watched a very awesome interview from 2010 to where who was it, PBS Now, and I forget the journalist that interviewed
he was good too. By the way, one of the most enlightening interviews to see people with difference of opinions and really just dig in and with a nice healthy debate without getting dirty.
Yeah, obviously it was 10 years ago, so they'd have been like fighting now. But so these two gentlemen were on there, and one was a journalist and one was an academic, an author, a professor. So it was Robert W. McChesney and John Nichols were on there. And really they were on there to talk about this topic and promote their book. Right, and the book was The Death and Life of American Journalism. But what they ended up talking about was they said, first off, the founding fathers thought journalism was paramount to our democracy. And I never really thought about the role that journalism and the press play in a democratic republic. So just like anything, any manager, anyone in a position of leadership has to be confronted with a problem, analyze and collect all of the information and details of the problem, and create a cost-effective, path forward based off of the data that they get. So we are a country of the power of the people. So we literally make decisions every time we go to the voting polls. And if the congressmen aren't running right, we need to give them a call or fire them off an email or a letter or whatever and let them know. Or get a bunch of people in the community and confront the congressman that it represents you because they do work for us, and let them know. Now, if we don't have good, solid information collected to make that decision off of, then we can't make an informed decision, which goes back to the state-run media, the propaganda, and the dissemination of information that Scott was talking about just a couple of minutes ago. So you cannot have a democracy without that funneling of information coming down to you. And then we need a lot of it, and we need different sources of it. So when journalism first started in the early 1800s, so our country was brand new, it was actually subsidized from the government for newspapers to spread their paper out to the people. So the post office for the first 75 years of our country actually delivered the paper to people's houses for free.
And you know why I love that? And here's the other thing I just wanted to interject here. I think that was I never knew that, but he said, again, it was the Nichols guy, right? Yeah. John Nichols. Yep. Great story about how that was the very first great debate in Congress. Right. How much should we charge for fucking newspapers? And remember what he said too, like the really more conservative guys were like, it should be as low as possible, because again, they're thinking we don't want any friction or any pushback from everybody getting information. So, we need to make it low as possible. Was it James Madison is the one who said, yeah, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It should be free. And in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking we've been paying when we were kids 75 cents for the Sunday paper. Now it's like $2, $2.50, whatever it is. But that's a barrier to entry for information. If you don't
and then you have to go get it.
yeah,
It's not
and-
like it's delivered. You have to
Right,
buy it
yeah.
and go get it.
you have to literally go out and seek news and have resources to do it. And that's going to stop not all, but it's going to stop 100% of Americans from being truly informed. And I thought that was amazing because I never had looked at it that way, or how they talking about journalism as a public good. Very similar to
Like power.
national defense was the example they used, right? Everybody needs it. Everybody thinks they deserve it, but everybody thinks somebody else should pay for it. And of course we all benefit from it. And kind of thinking about it that way really, really made me take a step back and be like, my mind kind of blew. I was like, whoa, dude, I never really understood. I mean, I guess I could think I did, but I never really understood how instrumental healthy and well-informed journalism is to just to the betterment of our society as a democracy, right? So that was really enlightening, just that one story in general. But I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's perfect. And in fact, to kind of continue down the timeline, since like the early 1900s, late 1800s, papers started getting monetized, right? How do we maximize profitability on these papers? Well, we're going to start selling ads. Classified ads,
Ooh, yeah.
Print ads for stores or whatever started bringing in money. Okay, cool. Well, then it shifted because that was now part of the free market economy. It was sustainable. It was working. It was working until the internet came around, right? So now Craigslist takes away the classifieds. That's a lot of money that newspapers lose right away.
Get a lot of money.
Now you can just go to Sears.com or whatever and get all the ads. You can go to Harbor Freight and see all the ads. You don't have to open up a paper for a single damn ad or classified because of the internet. So none of that revenue now needs to go to these papers.
Well, think about this too, Bob. Interesting. I never even thought about that. Remember back in the day, and we were in high school, when we used to look for jobs, we would circle shit in the paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now like the job boards, Monster, Indeed, all that shit, LinkedIn.
They get emailed to us.
Yeah, that was literally a huge draw to the paper too. Is that when everybody was looking for the job, get out
or houses or apartments.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Obituaries and everything. I mean, it was the source for everything that you needed to know, and that kind of slowly got stripped away.
Right. As people were forced to look towards the paper for things, advertisers could monetize that. When people stopped needing and had a necessity to look towards a paper for anything, now advertisers have all moved away from that, and now papers are shutting down. So now there's no one funding the press anymore. So we're just simply, it's dying away, and we just don't have it anymore. But that's not something that we can lose. So what these gentlemen were talking about in interviews, we need to go back to subsidizing the press so that we could disseminate that information equally and encourage investigative reporting. So they compared it to some of the Europe's models and how they do it, and
mainly Scandinavian countries.
Like Western European countries have a really strong press that have no fear of government, right? And they are all subsidized by the government. The irony there. That would never fly in today's political climate, but sometimes things have to change. So that's what's happening here. Now we have a few conglomerates that are siding politically, right? So you have Fox, that's super conservative. You have MSNBC and CNN that are super liberal, and they just side, and they're funded by those sides. Everything is presented from political ideology. They don't have any sort of obligation to present facts. They just present topics and then pontificate on it. And honestly, fucking confuse people that don't understand what's happening as to actual news.
And they do it, again, counter to why journalism is there. And again, they said it should not be a money-making, it should not be a for-profit industry, right? So again, they're coming out with these stories because the people that are backing them are paying them too. And even with the advertising. So this is something that was, I have to admit it, guys. This is the first time when I was presented with all the information and the idea of subsidizing public journalism,
or damn near anything.
That's not an idea I'm usually on board with. But when it comes to something that is absolutely instrumental and a necessity for us to have a good working democracy that will continue to progress and get better, we need to have all of the real information presented to us, not just through two funnels, so we can be fully informed to make the decisions, to make the informed, educated decisions on who we should be putting in and out of office. And I think that's where the big downfall. We talked about it, and now it's just kind of snapping to me. We keep having this scenario of being in the position to pick between the two least worst of. This is one of the fucking problems. This is why.
Absolutely.
People are not informed, so they go off of what they hear on CNN or MSNBC or on Fox all day long, or Breitbart or these other places, dude. And they're so fucking partisan and just ignoring the entire story. This is unfortunately what happens when you only get one side of the story, is you vote that way, right? So it goes beyond that, but that was just something that popped in my head too,
Well, I will say this. We're both free market guys. We think that free market creates competition and increases the end product for us, right? And
in a lot of industries,
everything
that works. In a lot of industries, that does work. This does not work like that.
Well, so I propose that if we encourage, and if it were subsidies or vouchers or whatever it was, if we encouraged media, then we could encourage the free market of information.
That's what's up.
We need that. Have people competing to get fact-based things out to the public, to get us informed, to make a decision. That's where we need to be.
Pay them on the front end and make it free for everybody on the back end, right? And that's I think that's kind of one of the ways they put it too. Which
and honestly, let's just get rid of the DEA and give them that money.
Dude, I'm telling you, you slash the DEA, ATF, boom, bam. That's that 30 billion that you need for the first year or so to get this kickstarted and see if it works.
And let's just, let's throw ICE in there too, because, before September 11th, the country still existed.
Yeah, they were just called immigration officers.
I'm just going to say that,
and border patrol. So, we already had agencies that covered that shit.
Yeah, we didn't need to throw billions more at that.
Anyway. I digress on that. Getting back to it though, God, man, it's really impressive too, because I think one of the things that they said too, and why there's so much fake news now. I know that's something that kind of was coined by Trump, right? That terminology. And I'm so ad nauseum. I hear it all the time. I'm sick of it.
It's not wrong. It's way overused and over, everything can't be fake news.
But here's the thing.
It's not wrong.
Going back to what these gentlemen said, though, the reason why there is so much unchecked stuff is because, like you were saying, without the advertising dollars in the free market way of doing journalism, where it's privately owned and backed by advertising, once that goes away because of the internet and because of progressions in other places, all these people that they would have in newspapers and TV stations in the media, they had a lot of journalists, they had a lot of fact checkers, they had a lot of PR, they had all this shit. All those people have been fired or laid off. So you really, again, only have the slimmest of the slim that are still working, and they can't do it all, and they don't bother to do it all because it's not something they're incentivized to do, right? Again, they're looking for profit. They're not looking to give people the news.
We so desperately need to take the need for profitability away from journalism so that we can increase their trade and they work on the competition of information instead of the competition of monetization.
Bob, do you know how fucking refreshing it would be to, like we had talked about a little bit earlier, and I think one of the sorry, I just looked at Hillary's face on my background. She's like, tell me more, Scott. Oh God, Stiffies, if you're not checking out the YouTube video, watch this one. The background I have is pretty comical. That threw me for a loop though. Okay, yeah. But what I was saying, because wouldn't it be so refreshing, like we had talked about, and I think what we were originally going to talk about with this topic is, man, it sucks that we got to watch the news and immediately, I don't know, that sounds like too good to be true or too bad to be true. I need to fact check that, if we didn't have to do that, and if we didn't have to think about social media in general, there would be nil debates. People would have healthy debates like we saw on that interview, right? They were all very informed guys on both ends. But think about all the stupid bloviating people do online with their partisan bullshit because they're getting everything funneled from MSNBC and CNN, Breitbart, whatever it is, right? And so they argue with people online and all this shit, and they don't have all the sources, man. They don't have the whole story. There's not enough independent journalism out there.
They're arguing from a stance of ignorance.
They're arguing from a stance of ignorance and a stance from knowing, again, one side of the story and being oblivious to the full picture. So it would be just so refreshing to me if people would argue just because they had a difference of opinions, but everybody had the same information available to them. Now, we do have the same information now available, but it's a fucking pain in the ass, Bob, to actually fact check a lot of shit. It gets fucking exhausting.
Yeah, most
you know what
stuff
I mean?
on the news is a starting point, and then you have to actually put in your personal time to figure out what the hell's actually going on.
And again, going back to the founders, they wanted to make it frictionless to get
Right.
all the information.
So much that they decided to pay for it.
Yeah. Which again, I'm for it. I'm a libertarian that's for subsidized journalism because I think it'll make us have a healthier democracy. But
Scotty 2024.
But in all seriousness, no, it's crazy, man, because I didn't think there was this much weight to journalism. I'll just say that. I think both of us were, pleasantly surprised, because it's not like how we were thinking before. It's like we kind of had a question mark up about why things are the way they are now. Why is the news so opinionated and so partisan and this or that? What
and we knew it was like, driven from like super PACs and like, wealthy billionaires on each side of the aisle and all that. But
why?
Yeah, it was very eye-opening and liberating to like just say, you know what? It's because our whole fucking system has been failing and no one wants to address it, because much like us, it takes a paradigm shift for all of America to kind of start looking that way and be like, hey, wait a minute, guys, we fucking need this. Like, we need healthcare.
Yeah. And I love the interviewer too, because the way he was kind of just, being combative with them. And again, a very respectful, intelligent way. I think I might watch that interview again, just after I watch a shitty news, piece, where they are arguing back and forth
of like the quality of people that exist out there.
I was like, look, if everybody's truly informed and they're open to the other person's point of view and they respect that, oh man, things just turn out a lot differently. And it's very refreshing. But no, it's just crazy, man. I was blown away by that, really, because not only is journalism essential, but I never thought about the idea of just this barrier to entry. Like I was just talking about too, like literally, if you want the straight dope, if you want to be educated on everything, you have to be the investigative journalism. Do you have time to do that? We have full-time jobs and families. We can't be out there fucking hitting the ground, figuring out all the stuff, interviewing people. That doesn't make sense. But right now, the way our free market journalism is set up with private companies, you're not going to get the information you need to make the right decisions the way it's set up. I mean, you are going to have to be the investigative journalism. And let's face it, just like how when papers cost money, cable news, cable costs money, whatever it is, any roadblock from getting this information is going to cost people either because they're lazy or they don't have the fucking time to not look into it further. Right. So that's where we're at, man. And that's kind of where we're at with, again, it was so enlightening to me to think about like presidential races in the past, couple of decades. Why have they been so subpar? It's because we're not informed.
No, nobody's informed. We're just taking bits and pieces and we're trying to make a decision based off of like very little information. And the information that we get is maybe true. We need to look at journalism as much as we look at, police and firefighters, as far as how instrumental it is to our society and how it can function and how it's needed. And right now the balance is way off. And I think we did a good job here at telling people like how important it really is. So hopefully you guys can think about it. I will leave the link to the book, like you said, also, if you guys want to read that. I bought it. I'm going to read it.
I'm going to buy it too. I mean, it's literally on this consignment kind of website or whatever. It's like $4 for a hard copy to get out there. I mean, if you really want to understand, because again, I think this is, this could be a turning point, man. If enough people were turned on and enlightened to how essential and how much of a literal backbone good, diverse, and plentiful journalism is, how important that is to our working society, I think it'd blow people away. And like the interviewer was saying too, which was, again, he had a great point. It's like, hey, listen, man, I don't want to sound like a jerk. Do you remember that? That's like he said. One thing is like, he even apologized for kind of coming off a little bit, a little bit snippy, but he did say like, hey, you guys, I get it. He laid out great idea, but it's about $30 billion a year we're looking at here, which is a drop in the bucket to what we spend on, military defense and things like that. But still, if you're going to take this to Congress at a large subsidy for what seems like a not so, pertinent kind of idea.
When it's not beneficial to congressmen and senators in general.
In fact, it should scare the shit out of them, right? And I think that's something I said. It's like journalism and the news should not be the friend of Donald J. Trump. Hannity should not be talking about him having dinner at his house.
Right.
These people should be deathly scared of journalism because that's the checks and balances to keep these people in line, man. I've said it before. People are inherently shitty people left to their own devices. Look what happens. If you're well informed about everything these fucking people do and what they stand for, from a diverse number of different sources and a lot of them, that's really going to make sure these guys are walking a straight line, and that's something else too, is they get away with a lot of shit because they know they can.
Politicians should always fear good journalism.
Absolutely.
And that fear is what keeps them in line.
100%. And I think that's been lost for a long time. So you literally now have the flip side happening. You have politicians and corporations controlling journalists and controlling what we're seeing on the news.
Yeah, I just got to say, for all of, what my freedom folks and all of the lefties out there, both sides need to look at this journalism issue and see the benefit of it. And just our democracy was designed in the beginning for freedom of press and for this dissemination of information. And if you don't believe me, check out the First Amendment, the very first thing that they write.
It's a pretty easy read too. I mean, just
pretty short, pretty simple. I think there's like 4 things they hit on, maybe 5 in that First Amendment.
Honestly, Bob, just to make a point there, telling people to read the Constitution or the First Amendment, that's another roadblock. We literally, to make sure everybody, we have to read it on the fucking show, and which the show is free to everybody. But that would be the best way to make sure everybody knows this. You can't tell people to go read a book anymore.
Can we get Ben Stein on to read it?
Oh, well, that motherfucker will put me asleep, but sure, we could do that for sure.
Well, this is a pleasant surprise. We have our meetings throughout the week, and you guys kind of know how we do our business here. But by the time this all came out, it was actually yesterday when we were changing direction on kind of what we wanted to try to enlighten people on about, not just, Fox or CNN or whatever, but, just about the state of journalism, how it's intended, how it integrates into our democracy, how critical of a public resource that this is for our democracy to work indefinitely. And if we lose journalism and we lose that competition of information, we will lose our democracy. Make no qualms about it. It will happen. And it has happened in every single government since the beginning of time. So
yeah,
very, very awesome change of direction. And I'm proud of us, Scott. I'm proud of us for digging into this and finding this out. This is a good find.
It was good. I mean, and this just goes to show you what can happen when you go into something with an open mind and you do educate yourself on it, and you really dig in. You can change your opinion. And
it's also a good example of how you and I and our society as a whole has normalized the state of journalism in 2020.
Yep.
How bad this is normal for everyone.
Yeah.
And it should not be normal. This is not normal.
And
we deserve better.
People should not be complacent with this anymore. I mean, if you're fed up with the way everything is going, if you're fed up with politics, if you're fed up with the news, this is the answer. I mean, what was very refreshing to us is we do know the solution, and we don't have all the pieces laid out. I'm going to have to read that book, right? And then maybe I'll understand their plan a little bit better. But the idea of the voucher system and everything like that, it sounds like this could be the way for us to dig our way out of going into a propaganda state. And let's face it, I know people are scared of socialism. I'm a little bit more scared of a propaganda state and turning into a communist country. And I know people say that leads into it, but let's not split hairs. I mean, literally, we lose journalism and we get one mouthpiece telling us everything. That's what we're going to be.
Well, we lose journalism, and I'll tell you right now, our 2-party system will quickly become a 1-party system.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because that's all we're going to hear.
Agreed.
Well, Bobby, that was an intense one, don't you think?
It was good.
I loved it.
It was
man.
good. And it's like I always say, every show that we do is better than the show we did a week before. So literally every show that we do is the best show of our lives.
And you laugh, but it's true and it feels good. You know what I mean? To always be at your best. Woo, come on, Christ, let's go. All right. Well, Bob, I think we might. I think we might be almost out of time here. About wrap this up. What do you think?
We're probably past out of time, but that's okay. Some things need to be talked about.
I don't think we're too far back.
No, we're pretty good at sensing our time now. We're like the rats waiting for the bell to ding to get the cheese. We're like, no, when it's about to happen.
Yeah. Or like, like the shitty comedian open mic night after getting no applauses and a bunch of shit thrown at him. We know when it's time to bow out and walk off stage. So I think that time's coming right now, buddy.
Well, it is. And if you guys like what you hear, remember to like and subscribe, or at least, tell your friends and spread the good word and share our podcast on iTunes and Spotify, or, wherever you get your podcast from. We're pretty much everywhere.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah, no, it'd be great. This was a really fun one. I'm really pumped for next week too. I think this is just getting better and better. Like you just said though, but I think the show continues to get more rich, more diverse, just better content. So I'm excited for next week. But guys, like Bob said, check us out, please. If you can, take a moment. I know there's a barrier there, but write a little review on, is it iTunes, right?
iTunes, right?
Yeah, write a little review on iTunes. If you're more of a video type, visual type person, get in there, ring the bell, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got all the episodes up there. The backgrounds that we have are usually pretty comical and go a little bit along with what we're doing on the show. And you get to see our ugly mugs. But other than that, guys, Bob, congratulations for turning 40 and becoming a real man.
I'm old AF.
And everybody else out there, we love you guys. Thanks again for continuing to listen to us go on and on about so many, ridiculous and all some really awesome things. And we look forward to talking with you guys next week with another exciting episode, some news conspiracies, what have you. But that's all I got, Bob. So take care, guys. Love you all. We'll see you next week.
See ya. This is Stiff Truth.